fluorescent lights were flickering again. I remember thinking how typical that was for a gas station at 2 in the morning. I've been working the graveyard shift at this runoff highway station for about 3 months, and honestly, I thought I'd seen it all. Drunks, weirdos, the occasional tweaker looking for bathroom access. My name's Tyler, and up until that night in November 2019, I genuinely believed nothing could shake me anymore. I was wrong. The station sat about 40 miles outside of Boise, Idaho, right where Route 84 cuts through nothing but darkness and pine trees. During the day, we'd get truckers, families, the usual crowd. But after midnight, the place became a different world. My manager, an older guy named Ron, had always told me, keep the doors locked after 1 a.m. Buzz people in if they look normal. I usually follow that rule, but that night, I got lazy. It was a Wednesday, dead silent, except for the hum of the refrigerators and that annoying flicker in the overhead lights. I was restocking cigarettes behind the counter when I heard the door chime. I didn't look up right away. I was focused on organizing the Marlboros. But when I finally glanced toward the entrance, my stomach dropped. There was a man standing just inside the doorway. He wasn't moving, just standing there, staring directly at me. He wore a gray hoodie, hands shoved deep in the pockets, and his face was partially obscured by the shadow of the hood. But I could see his eyes. They were wide, unblinking, reflecting the fluorescent light like an animal caught in headlights. "Can I help you?" I called out, trying to sound casual, but my voice cracked slightly. He didn't respond, didn't move, didn't blink. I felt a cold sweat break out across my back. Something was very wrong. I've dealt with sketchy people before, but this was different. This felt predatory. I slowly reached for my phone under the counter, keeping my eyes on him, and that's when he smiled. Not a friendly smile, not even a crazy smile. It was mechanical, like someone had told him what a smile was supposed to look like, but he'd never actually felt happiness. "We're about to close." I lied, my throat suddenly bone dry. "You need gas or something?" He tilted his head, studying me like I was an insect under glass. Then, slowly, he started walking toward the counter. His movements were stiff, unnatural, like his joints weren't bending quite right. Each footstep echoed in the empty store, and I could hear his breathing now, raspy, wet like fluid in his lungs. My hand found my phone. I didn't call 911 yet, but I had it ready. "Sir, I'm going to need you to either make a purchase or leave." He stopped about 10 feet from the counter. That's when I noticed his hands. They were still in his pockets, but the hoodie fabric was moving, stretching, like his fingers were doing something inside. Something repetitive. Something wrong. "Are you alone?" His voice was barely above a whisper, but in that silent store, it cut through everything. Every survival instinct in my body started screaming. "No," I lied again. "My manager's in the back." His smile widened. "No, he's not." My heart was hammering now, so hard I could hear it in my ears. I glanced at the security monitor beside me, the one that showed the parking lot. His car was parked directly in front of the doors, engine still running, headlights on, but there was someone else in the passenger seat. Someone sitting perfectly still, head tilted at an odd angle. "What do you want?" I managed to ask. He pulled his right hand for his pocket. He was holding a knife, but not like he was threatening me with it. He was just showing it to me, casually, like it was a credit card. "I want you to open the register," he said calmly, "and then I want you to come with me." That last part hit me like ice water. This wasn't just a robbery. I fumbled for the panic button under the counter, the one that silently alerted police, and slammed my palm against it. The man's eyes flickered toward my hand, and his expression changed. The smile vanished. "You shouldn't have done that." He lunged forward, faster than I thought possible, and I stumbled backward, crashing into the cigarette display behind me. Packs of camels rained down around me as I scrambled toward the back room. I could hear him vaulting over the counter, his breathing getting louder, more excited. I burst through the employee door and slammed it shut, engaging the flimsy lock. My hand was shaking so violently, I could barely grip my phone as I dialed 911. The door shuddered as he threw his weight against it. Once. Twice. 911. What's your emergency? There's someone trying to kill me. I screamed into the phone, giving them the address between gasping breaths. I'm at the Express Gas on Route 84. Please. He's trying to break down the door. The operator was saying something, but I couldn't focus on her words because the pounding stopped. Everything went silent. I pressed my ear against the door, trying to hear anything, and that's when I heard it. Whistling. He was whistling a tune I didn't recognize. Cheerful and light, completely at odds with what was happening. Then the lights went out. The circuit breaker was in the back room with me, and he'd somehow killed the power from out there. I was in complete darkness, except for the glow of my phone screen. The operator was still talking, telling me police were 7 minutes away, but 7 minutes felt like an eternity. I heard footsteps, not from the door I'd locked, from above me, the ceiling. He was in the crawl space above the drop ceiling panels. I could hear him moving, hear the metal framework creaking under his weight. My breath caught in my throat as I tracked the sound, moving directly over my head, then stopping. Right above me, a ceiling tile shifted, just slightly. I could see the edge lift in the dim glow of my phone. I backed into the corner, grabbing the only weapon I could find, a metal clipboard from the desk. The tile moved again, and I saw fingers, pale, dirty fingers, grip the edge. That's when I ran. I burst out of the back room, into the darkened store, and sprinted for the front entrance. Behind me, I heard him drop from the ceiling with a heavy thud, heard him curse, heard him running after me. I could feel him closing the distance, could hear his ragged breathing right behind me. I hit the front doors at full speed, slamming through them into the cold November air, and kept running toward the road. His footsteps pounded the pavement behind me, getting closer. I could almost feel his hand reaching for my shoulder when suddenly, blessedly, I saw headlights. A semi-truck was pulling into the station. I ran straight toward it, screaming and waving my arms. The truck driver's eyes went wide as he hit the brakes. I looked back and saw the man in the hoodie standing under the gas station canopy, perfectly still, watching me. The knife was still in his hand. Then he turned and ran back to his car. By the time the truck driver climbed down and the police arrived 4 minutes later, the car was gone. The person in the passenger seat was gone. The only evidence he'd ever been there was the broken lock on the employee room door and the displaced ceiling tile. The police found the car 3 days later, abandoned in a ravine about 60 miles north. The passenger seat was stained with blood. They never found a body. They never found him. I quit that job the next morning. I still can't go into gas stations alone at night. And sometimes, when I'm driving and I pass one of those isolated highway stops, I see someone standing under the lights, hands in their pockets, watching the road, watching for someone like me. I never believed in gut feelings until that night. You know, that voice in your head that tells you something's wrong even when everything looks normal. I ignored it, and I almost died because of it. My name's Rebecca, and this happened during a road trip in March 2021. I was driving from Phoenix to Denver, a trip I'd made probably a dozen times for work. I always drove at night to avoid traffic, and I'd always stop at the same gas station in northern New Mexico, a little place called Desert Rose, right off Highway 550. Clean bathrooms, decent coffee, never had a problem. Until that night. I pulled in around 3:30 in the morning. The parking lot was empty except for one other car, a beat-up sedan parked around the side of the building in the shadows. Something about it felt off immediately. The car was facing out, like it was ready to leave in a hurry, and I couldn't see anyone inside despite the windows being clear. I almost left, almost got back on the highway, but I really needed to use the bathroom, and my gas tank was running low. So I ignored that screaming voice in my head and went inside. The store was bright, humming with that electric buzz of fluorescent lights and refrigerator units. Behind the counter stood an attendant, a woman in her 50s with bleached blonde hair and a tired expression. She looked up when I entered, and I swear I saw relief flash across her face. "Bathroom?" I asked. She nodded toward the back corner, keys hanging by the door. I grabbed the key, attached to a large wooden spoon, weird but typical, and headed to the bathroom. That's when I noticed her eyes following me, not in a suspicious way, in a desperate way, like she wanted to say something but couldn't. The bathroom was surprisingly clean, and I was in and out quickly. When I came back to the front, she was wiping down the counter, but her hands were shaking. "You okay?" I asked, hanging the key back up. She glanced toward the coffee station in the corner, then back at me. "Pump 6, she said quietly. "Prepay." I nodded and pulled out my wallet, but she leaned forward slightly. "There's a man," she whispered, "in the coffee aisle. He's been here for 40 minutes. He hasn't bought anything. He hasn't moved. Every time I ask if he needs help, he just smiles and says he's deciding." My blood ran cold. I slowly turned toward the coffee station, and that's when I saw him. He was standing with his back to us, facing the coffee dispensers, completely motionless. He wore a dark jacket and jeans, hands at his sides, head tilted slightly like he was reading the labels. But he wasn't reading anything. He was just standing there. "Have you called the police?" I whispered back. "My phone's dead," she said, her voice cracking. "And he disabled the landline. Cut the cord in the back when I wasn't looking. I found it 20 minutes ago." "Jesus Christ. Use mine," I said, sliding my phone across the counter to her. But before she could grab it, the man spoke. "Don't do that." His voice was calm, conversational even, but he still hadn't turned around. He was still facing the coffee dispensers, motionless. My throat went completely dry. The attendant's face had gone pale. "I just want to buy my coffee and leave," he continued, still not moving. "But if you call the police, we're going to have a problem." Every muscle in my body was telling me to run, but I was frozen. The attendant slowly pushed my phone back toward me, her eyes pleading. "I'm going to pump my gas and leave," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "And then you can buy your coffee." "No," he said simply. "You're going to stay right here." He finally turned around. I wish he hadn't. His face was wrong. I don't know how else to describe it. His features were asymmetrical in a way that made my brain hurt to look at. One eye was slightly higher than the other. His mouth didn't quite line up. It was like looking at a human face that had been put together by someone who'd only seen pictures. And he was smiling. That same too wide, too empty smile. "Both of you," he said, walking slowly toward the counter, "are going to come with me. We're going to go out back, get in my car, and take a little drive." The attendant made a small whimpering sound. I gripped my phone so hard my knuckles turned white. "There are cameras," I said, voice shaking. "You're on camera right now." He glanced up at the security camera in the corner and laughed. Actually laughed. "No, I'm not. I covered that lens an hour ago. You didn't notice because you didn't look." He was right. I hadn't looked. "Please," the attendant whispered. "Please just leave." "Open the register," he said, pulling something from his jacket pocket. I expected a weapon, but it was worse. It was a roll of duct tape and a bundle of zip ties. That's when I knew this wasn't a robbery. This was something much worse. My fingers moved on autopilot, dialing 911 on my phone under the counter, praying the sound wouldn't give me away. The man's eyes flickered down toward my hands, and his smile vanished. "I told you not to do that." He vaulted the counter faster than I thought possible. I screamed and threw my phone at his face, then ran for the door. The attendant dove sideways, crashing into a display of chips. I could hear him behind me, could hear his footsteps, could hear him breathing. I hit the door at full speed and burst into a parking lot. My car was parked right in front, 20 feet away. I was fumbling for my keys when I realized they were still inside, on the counter, next to my credit card. No. I spun around and saw him emerge from the store, walking now, casual and confident, because he knew I had nowhere to go. The attendant was stumbling out behind him, blood running from her nose. I did the only thing I could think of. I ran into the darkness, away from the lights, into the empty desert scrubland that surrounded the station. Behind me, I heard him laugh. "Where are you gonna go?" he called out. "There's nothing out there for miles." He was right, but I kept running. I ran until my lungs burned, until my legs felt like they'd give out, until the gas station lights were just a glow on the horizon. Then I dropped behind a cluster of brush and tried to silence my ragged breathing. I could hear him out there, moving through the darkness, calling out to me like we were playing hide and seek. "Rebecca," he sang out, "I found your wallet. I know your name now. I know where you live." Tears were streaming down my face. My phone was gone. My car was gone. I was alone in the desert with a predator who knew my name. That's when I saw headlights on the highway. A car was approaching the gas station. I stood up and ran toward the lights, screaming, waving my arms. The car, a police cruiser, swerved into the parking lot. Behind me, I heard him curse, heard him running in the opposite direction. The officer jumped out, gun drawn, and I collapsed onto the pavement, sobbing and pointing toward the darkness. They found the attendant locked in the storage room, terrified but alive. They found my car, my keys, my phone. They never found him. The officer told me later that they'd had 3 similar incidents in the area over the past 6 months. Women traveling alone, stopping at isolated gas stations, encountering a man who fit the same description. 2 of them got away. 1 didn't. They found her car abandoned 3 weeks earlier, about 40 miles north. They never found her. I don't drive alone at night anymore. And every time I pass a gas station in the middle of nowhere, I look at the parking lot, at the cars and shadows, and I wonder if he's there, waiting for someone like me. The thing about working overnight at a gas station is that you see people at their worst. They're most desperate. They're most vulnerable. I thought I'd become immune to it after 2 years on the graveyard shift. I thought nothing could surprise me anymore. Then I met the family. My name's Jordan, and this happened in June 2020, during the height of the pandemic. I was working at a truck stop off Interstate 40 in Oklahoma, one of those massive places with showers, a restaurant, and about 20 gas pumps. Usually, we'd have truckers coming and going all night, but during the pandemic, traffic had slowed to a crawl. Some nights, I'd go hours without seeing a single customer. This was one of those nights. It was around 4 in the morning when they pulled up. A minivan, dark blue, coated in road dust. It parked at pump 12, and I watched on the security monitors as the driver's door opened. A man stepped out, mid-40s, wearing khakis and a polo shirt, looking like any suburban dad on a family vacation. He started pumping gas, and that's when I noticed the others in the van. A woman in the passenger seat, 3 kids in the back, and none of them were moving, not shifting in their seats, not looking at their phones, not sleeping against the windows, just sitting, perfectly still, all facing forward. Something about it made my skin crawl. The man finished pumping and walked toward the store. The automatic doors slid open, and he stepped inside with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Evening," he said cheerfully. Too cheerfully for 4 a.m. "Morning," I corrected, watching him carefully. "Bathrooms in the back if you need it." "Oh no, I'm fine," he said, walking toward the snack aisle. "Just need to grab some things for the kids. We've been driving all night." I nodded, tracking him on the security monitors. He was moving through the aisle slowly, picking up items and putting them back like he was killing time. After about 5 minutes, he approached the counter with an armful of chips, candy bars, and energy drinks. "Long drive ahead?" I asked, scanning his items. "Very long," he said, that same frozen smile on his face. "We're headed to California. Family emergency." I nodded again, but my eyes kept drifting to the security monitor showing pump 12. The van was still there. The woman and kids were still motionless. "Your family want anything?" I gestured toward the van. His smile faltered for just a fraction of a second. "They're sleeping. Don't want to wake them. But they weren't sleeping. I could see their faces on the monitor. Their eyes were open. That'll be $42.50, I said, my mouth suddenly dry. He pulled out cash, counting out exact change slowly, deliberately, like he was stalling. You work here alone? He asked casually. Every alarm bell in my head started ringing. No, I lied. Managers in the back, doing inventory. He knew I was lying. I could see it in his eyes. He said, glancing around the empty store. Busy night. Busy enough. He pocketed his change and picked up the bags, but he didn't leave. He just stood there, staring at me with that horrible smile. You seem nervous, he said. I'm fine, because if something was wrong, you'd say something. Right. My hand slowly moved toward the panic button under the counter. Is there something you need, sir? He leaned forward, and I caught a smell coming off him. Something chemical. Something wrong. I need you to do me a favor, he whispered. What kind of favor? I need you to come out to the van with me. Just for a minute. I need help with something. Absolutely not. Every survival instinct I had was screaming at me to refuse, to hit the panic button, to run. But I kept my voice level. I can't leave the register, sir. Company policy. His smile finally dropped completely. It wasn't a request. That's when he pulled his right hand from his pocket. He was holding a gun, small and black, pointed directly at my chest. My blood turned to ice. Here's what's going to happen, he said calmly. You're going to walk around that counter, nice and slow. You're going to follow me out to the van. And you're not going to do anything stupid. Understand? I couldn't speak. I could barely breathe. I just nodded. Good. Let's go. I stepped out from behind the counter on his shaking legs. He positioned himself behind me, gun pressed against my lower back, and walked me toward the exit. Through the glass doors, I could see the van. I could see the woman and children inside, still motionless. What was he going to do to me? Put me in that van. Why weren't they moving? We were halfway across the parking lot when headlights appeared on the interstate. A semi-truck was pulling into the lot, heading for the diesel pumps on the far side. The man's grip on my arm tightened painfully. Don't make a sound, he hissed. But I was already screaming. I screamed as loud as I could, twisting away from him, and his gun went off. The bullet missed me by inches, shattering the window of pump 13. The truck driver slammed on his brakes, and I heard him shouting, reaching for his CB radio. The man cursed and ran for the van. He jumped into the driver's seat and peeled out of the parking lot so fast the tires screamed. I collapsed onto the pavement, shaking uncontrollably as the truck driver ran toward me. Are you okay? Did he hurt you? I couldn't answer. I was staring at the road where the van had disappeared, and that's when I realized something that made my blood run cold. When the van peeled out, when it sped away, the woman and children still hadn't moved. They'd been jostled by the sudden acceleration, their bodies swaying, but they never reached for handholds, never braced themselves, because they couldn't. The police arrived within 10 minutes. They took my statement, reviewed the security footage, ran the license plate. The van was registered to a man named Paul Hendricks from Arkansas. When they went to his home address the next day, they found his wife and 3 children in the garage. They'd been dead for 4 days. The police told me later that he'd murdered them during an argument, then kept driving with their bodies, stopping at gas stations, acting like everything was normal, talking to people, buying snacks for dead children, looking for his next victim. They caught him 2 weeks later at a gas station in Nevada, trying the same routine with a different overnight attendant. He had another girl in the van with him by then. She was still alive. Barely. I quit that job the same day I gave my statement. I still see that van sometimes in my peripheral vision when I'm driving late at night. Still see those motionless figures in the back seat. And I never, ever work alone anymore.